Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the daily chart provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. As you know, I'm struggling with mic issues, so bear with me. It's a very difficult problem to resolve. I had a computer crash and then I had to readjust with microphones, so hopefully this is better than last time, but I can't guarantee anything. So we've got the primary trend lines here, the one that was drawn from the very bottom that we formed in 2008. It intersects with the takeoff that we get with QE2, and that we're now correcting back down. We had the May smackdown that touched down, and now we're trying to find a bottom here. So I've drawn a couple of trend lines, the descending trend line here, the major one, and then the minor one. And then I've drawn a trend line on the MACD, which you can see we're starting to round up on this one, so we may form a bottom and round up from here. We don't know. Now, of course, the ultimate support line is going to be back here around the 22 area. This is going to be the one we're really looking at. So we have three levels here, 1, 2, and 3. Now, of course, we're looking for opportunities to stack. The situation is tight, and it's very controversial. If you remember the video that I did last time, I posted an office series yesterday, and the comments have come in fast and furious, so I wanted to address that briefly. Now, the office series video that I did was on the volatility in the silver market, and I don't have that page up, so let's go ahead and pull up the page for the Silver Users Association. And the default is going to be my blog, because I've set it to that. So we want to look at actually it's the Silver Institute, I'm sorry. I want to look at the Silver Institute. Bear with me here, I'm dealing with a lot of issues. And the Silver Institute has the supply and demand of silver. So we want to look at the silver supply and demand, and remember the chart that we had. This is world silver demand. So you can see that world silver demand has risen fairly steadily, but it's had a recent spike. It's still a fairly steady chart, and we want to look at silver supply. And that doesn't have a chart on it. We had that chart before, but the point I wanted to make is that in the office series video that I just did, I pointed out that silver supply and silver demand are both rising fairly steadily in a straight line, and the issue was volatility. So the question becomes, why do we have such a volatile situation in silver? Now, you know that the shills are very quick to point out that silver is not an investment vehicle that you should trust because it's so volatile. And the question is, why is it so volatile? If you remember, I pointed out that silver is not like the corn crops or the wheat crops or the oat crops. It's not like oil. It's not like any other commodity. It's actually much more like gold, not quite as stable, but closer to gold than anything else, in that the mining supply rises fairly steadily every year, and the demand rises fairly steadily every year. So the question becomes, why is silver the most volatile of the commodities? You can see these massive spikes, massive drops, and my contention is that it really is the paper silver manipulation that causes these massive spikes and massive drops. if that's the case, which I do believe it is, then it's not really something that's intrinsic to silver. It's something that's intrinsic to the silver manipulation. And that's the main point, that silver should be actually one of the most stable commodities out there. It really should be rising in something like this trend channel here that we have. So it should steadily rise with inflation, and then of course it probably should take off and then steadily rise in a new channel due to the broken fundamentals, and then it should just keep rising. But obviously it hasn't. So the question is, why is it that silver is different than the other commodities, even though it's a steadily mined and steadily demanded product? I think the answer that I'm going to say is that it is a manipulated market. Now, of course, the reason for the manipulation is going to be the conspiracy, I will say, against silver. Now, I'm going to jump to my blog because I don't have a lot of time and I'm doing experimental things here, so I'm just going to do a quick blog roll. And the main theme of the blog, you have to remember, is that physical silver is the stake in the heart of the financial vampires. It is the bullet that slays the Wall Street werewolves. So it's not surprising that physical silver is going to be the target of every type of financial shenanigan that they can throw at it. So you need to keep stacking. You're going to be thrown off your game because that's their goal, is to throw you off your game to make you doubt this. And that's covered in one of the Jim Sinclair articles that I've covered. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the blog roll because it's so large, since I haven't done it since the beginning of the holidays. So some of the articles that I've covered here, you've got an interview with Gerald Celente. This is on Alex Jones. You really need to watch this. Celente is going off. He gives a account of trying to go to the bank. Apparently Celente is going to do one of the stuff the money in the mattress things, and he's going to his banks and demanding the money, and he goes through all the problems he has by trying to get cash out of the bank. Now, the next story is, if the euro collapses, the UK plans to close the borders and evacuate expats. That's actually from the Bernie Madoff channel. That is the channel that Bernie Madoff, as far as I know, that is the real Bernie Madoff channel that posted that. Not that Russia Today is anything really unique, but it is interesting that Bernie Madoff has a channel. The next one is Jim Sinclair's commentary. Very interesting. I wanted to read this to you because this is so important. If you remember, Jim Sinclair was recently interviewed on Eric King's channel, and this is where he made this statement. He said, "Let me tell you that when this year is over, the only hands left holding physical gold," and of course that goes for silver as well, "the only hands left holding physical gold and gold shares are the strongest hands on the planet. Every possible weak hand has been shaken out. Every person with emotions, even latently capable of overwhelming their intellect, overwhelming their judgment, will have already been overwhelmed. The people who are left are the people who will never give up their positions." And I think he's right on that. That is an amazing statement. The next video is a tolving video. It's fascinating. It's only allowed to be played on YouTube, so I've linked a picture and you can click on that. It shows the tremendous amount of physical silver that tolving moves out of his operation. Another video is the Mike Maloney video that was just posted recently about the greatest transfer of wealth in history, and you've just got to watch it because Maloney is incredible. Here is an article from, I think I pulled this from SilverSeek. This is why we're sticking with silver as our top pick for 2012. He actually says he thinks that silver is going to finish the year even. I don't know. Probably going to, I think we'll finish the year somewhere between down 5 and 10% because we've taken a tremendous beating of late. This article is about the attempt to recall the senators that passed the NDAA. This is in Montana, and the picture says everything. Of course, Patriot Radio News Hour. This is a must listen. You need to listen to that every day. Now, this is an article I wrote about the Sears Kmart shutdown of the 100 to 120 stores, and I detail the information about Fast Eddie Lampert. I don't know if you remember that, but Eddie Lampert came in and ended up taking control of Kmart, and then through a bankruptcy proceeding, he used the properties of Kmart. He sold those, and then he ended up buying out Sears. So that's a fascinating story of how a person could come in and take a bankrupt company and then take over a solvent company. And a lot there, obviously there's a lot of red flags there, and you can see the stock of Sears Kmart absolutely collapsed today, and you can see the major bag holders I've highlighted there. Next story is my analysis of the chart, and I just did that, so we won't cover that. The next story is expat relocation listed by country. This highlights escapeartist.com. This is a site where you can get a lot of information about joining the expat communities, where people are beginning to flee the overzealous restrictive tax climate that's in the United States. Again, here's another article on that. That's from International Living, and that's a group that I get a lot of emails from. So they have a lot of detailed and helpful information about moving overseas. The latest Bix Weir came out, and he's doing some clarifications on Ranting Andy, who was covered by SGT Bull. I think that Bix has some very interesting points he makes there. Now, China just recently clamped down on gold. It's very interesting. I threw a chart up here that shows China's steady accumulation of gold, and of course, if you remember the stories that China always admits after the fact of how much gold they've bought. They never tell you when they're buying, but after the fact, maybe 1 or 2 years later, they'll tell you how much they bought. So interesting story there. A run on the global banking system. How close are we? That's Gonzalo Lira. Always a great read. The TSA screenings. Now we can see that the Viper teams are moving out to the train stations and the roads. So that's no comment. And the drone crash in Iran. This is a article from Gary North on Lou Rockwell, and he says, like their drones, federal employees will crash. James Rickards, he sees currency wars and ultimately the destruction of the dollar. Now this is an article I wrote about the Obama request for the debt limit to be hiked, and that's supposedly going to happen before the end of the year. Very shocking. And I comment here how you can see that they have no intent of derailing this train. They fully intend to run this thing right off the tracks. So another good article from Bill Sardi, American Wealth Eroding. I've added a chart here that you can see the middle class is declining rapidly. This interview is with Alistair MacLeod, and he talks about the euro and a very educated person and the potential for the euro to completely collapse. And that's the Office series. There's a lot of other articles that I've covered in my blog. I can't cover all these issues. There's just so many things coming fast and furious. I did want to cover the live feed of my blog, and I'm really impressed with this. This is the Fidget site, and you can actually watch live updates. You can see as people come into the blog, they populate on the times here, increment, and until the next person comes on, you can see. And a new person came in from Reno. You get the country of origin, the browser they're using, and the operating system that's running on their computer. So it's very interesting to me as a new blogger to look at these statistics and how they work, and these things are fascinating to me. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the live 3D map of the globe. I'll show you how to use that. It is a spinning 3D map of the globe. It's done in Java, and it's Revolver Maps. And what this gives you is a 3D map of the globe. The ones that you see that are highlighted in white, and you can scroll in, you can stop it and zoom in. And the ones that are highlighted in white are the ones that are currently on my site. It started spinning again. And the ones that are in red are the ones that have visited the site. So very interesting. You can see obviously it's dominated by the United States and Europe, and there's a significant presence, well, not significant, but substantial presence, I'll say, in Southern Asia, Indonesia, Australia, parts of China. Interesting that the parts of China that you get here are the shore, Hong Kong and Macau and things like that. But a very interesting thing to study when you're new to blogging like I am, to see how the visitors are coming to your site and why. And they increment here on this side here. You can see they come in one at a time. So fascinating to me. All the people that are interested in the silver story, they're actually worldwide. They're not just isolated to the United States. And you can see Canada has a really large presence as well. So back to the chart, we are looking for a rally here. I think with the MACD rounding up, we're looking for the MACD to penetrate this descending MACD trend line to the upside, and if we don't, we're looking for a test of $27.50, $25, and ultimately $22. We're going to be looking for some really good bargains on the numismatics, hopefully with a low premium, or just some really good bargains on the junk silver or other rounds. And we'll talk to you next time.